Hello, my name is Abel Sanchez. In this lesson, we're going to be walking through JSON data. If you have not watched the lesson on JSON basics, please go ahead and watch that before you continue with this lesson. Let me point out here the JSON file that we are going to be working with. You can see here that in the first part of this statement, I am creating a variable, and after that we have the JSON statement. It is basically one value pair, the first part, the key, the handle, which is users, and then we have a number of users in an array. And you can see that for each of those we're providing name, email, and phone. We have Michael, Paul, George, and Elvis. So how do we loop through this? This is something that you'll want to do quite frequently within your code, loop through a list of data. So let's go ahead and move to our HTML file. You can see here where we're loading that JSON file, and write some JavaScript to do that. Okay, so I'm using the same file, or I'm modifying the file that we wrote on the first and the basic JSON lesson. So let's go ahead. The first thing that we'll want to do is we will want to get the length of that list of data. So we can define a variable called length, and then we can use data.users.length. This last part is a property within JavaScript that gives us the length automatically of a list. So you can see here that data comes from here, and users is the first handle or the first key that you have within the JSON statement. Okay, so the next thing we'll want to do is we will want to let the user know. Now when we will want to write to the screen what that value is. So we will write length, and we will add to it the value that we have just defined. The next thing we'll do is we'll write a for loop. For loops have three parts. The first one is the initial condition. I will define a variable called counter, started at 0. The second one is the condition that will be checked on each loop, and it will continue until this is no longer true. So I want to continue as long as the counter is less than the length of that list. And then the final statement is how much that counter will increase on each iteration. So counter plus plus. This is just a convention of the language. You can read more about for loops if you so wish, but this is the basic structure. Okay, so now we're inside of the body of this for loop, this is the code that will be executed on each iteration. So we will want to access, using the dot notation, the name of each of these items. So let's go ahead and write an alert so we can write to the screen, and we can do data.users, and in this case we're going to be accessing the items of the array. So we're going to use the counter, which will be increasing on each iteration. The first one will be 0, the second one will be 1, and so on. And then write the name. Okay, so if all went well, now we can save this file and we can go, well, probably we should, instead of saying reading, we should say walking through JSON file, and go back to our browser and reload this page. Okay, so if I go ahead and reload, we can see here walking through JSON file. If we view the page source just to make sure that all of our changes made it in, we can see that all of that information is there, our code. So now if we click on the button and all goes well, we should be able to see the first item, or the first thing that we should see is the length of that list. And we can see that the length is 4. And if we compare to what we had in the data array, we can see that that's in fact true. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, we should now start walking through the names. We got Michael, Paul, George, and Elvis. So as you can see here, we've gone ahead and used the dot notation to walk through a set of data in an array that was defined in a JSON statement. This is something that you will be doing very frequently when you work with data, so make sure you understand how all of that comes together and that you can effectively walk through your data. So with that, let me close and thank you for your attention. Goodbye.